Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So I made a video yesterday about Britain's rubbish, and I did a quick walk around and I showed some videos of rubbish piling up. So somebody in my comment section said it's only piling up because yesterday was basically, pickup day or something, or rubbish pickup day. Well, no, guys, no, 100% not. Because I went to the same area today and look what I found. It's just full of rubbish. And it's more rubbish than I filmed yesterday. So, as a reference, I've just shown you the video that I took today. You can see how much rubbish has piled up. And I've shown you the video I took yesterday, which had some rubbish, but not as much as today. So, you see, guys, these rubbishes are just piling up in these streets all over London. Maybe some areas are worse than others, but this area is definitely the worst. There might be other worse areas, to be honest. But yeah, this is really London, guys. I am not joking. It's crazy. Looks like they've got no money left. No money left to clean the streets anymore. You know, they probably used to do it daily before, but now they don't have the money. Now they probably do it, I don't know, maybe once a week or maybe twice a week. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. Anyway, let's look at the news today. So this is JD Vance's face when President Trump sent a tweet, and I'm not joking, guys. So just to give you some background knowledge, JD Vance was in Switzerland having negotiations with the Iranians. So right in the middle of the negotiations, President Trump sends a tweet saying if they don't open the strait, then they will bomb Iran into smithereens or something along those lines. And what's worse, guys, Trump even threatened the two Iranian diplomats that he would kill them. He said they will not return to their effing country. That's what he said. Those are his words. He said they will not return to their effing country, meaning they will be killed in Switzerland or on the way to Switzerland. Oh, sorry, should I say on the way to Iran? And and all the negotiations just stopped because the Iranian delegates they refused to carry on with the negotiations until President Trump apologizes and until Israel, pulls out of Lebanon. Basically pulls back from Lebanon. All the land that they've taken, they need to go back to where they were. And it was a quite funny day because there's lots of clips going around the internet. There was one particular clip where Qataris went and hugged, the Prime Minister of President, or should I say, President of Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif, and he completely ignored JD Vance. So this is the clip, and you can see the Qatari. He just Vice President JD Vance was just standing there, and he just completely ignored him. He went and hugged, the Prime Minister of. I don't know if it's the Prime Minister or President of Pakistan, guys. Sorry if I get it wrong, apologize. But yeah, he just hugged Shahbaz Sharif there, and he just gave JD Vance a look. He didn't even go for a hug or a handshake, and I just thought it was just so hilarious. And the reason he's probably done that is because of Trump's tweet and because obviously he's derailed the negotiations again with one tweet. And the Qataris are not very happy about it because If the war starts again, the Americans will start using Qatari bases and Qatari airspace, and the Qataris will be hit again. Funnily enough, Qatar actually did get hit today. Somebody somewhere fired some, I don't know if it was a drone or some sort of explosion, and it destroyed one of the gas fields in Qatar. So obviously we don't know the full details yet. Um, I think they're still investigating, but that sounds like some sort of false flag that Israel would have done. So it's quite strange that happening today, after the Qataris snubbed JD Vance. So soon after this incident, suddenly the Qatari gas fields start blowing up. So it seems very, very suspect. So I want to show you the face of the year, guys. This is the face of Shabazz Sharif. This is the face of Shabazz Sharif. After he found out that after he found out what Trump has sent in the tweet and how these negotiations got cancelled. So that's Shabazz Sharif's face. He looks totally disgusted. Totally disgusted. I'll just reverse. Look at that face. After Trump sent that tweet out, that is the face of the year. That is like, oh F. I can't say the full word, but that is that face. But let me tell you guys, it's no joking matter, guys. I might be laughing, but I'm not laughing at anything. I'm just laughing at the whole clown show. I'm laughing at the whole situation. It doesn't seem real. It seems like we're living in some sort of parody or something, or some sort of comedy show. It doesn't even feel real. I don't know if you guys remember an old show we used to have in UK called Yes Prime Minister, and that was satire. That was satire and dark comedy about the British Prime Minister and politics. And back then, you used to laugh, at that show. But you don't need any shows like that anymore because you just have to, switch on your TV and switch on your social media, and you can see, it's just a comedy show out there, guys. Absolutely hilarious, hilarious. So let's talk a little bit about the economy. So the latest Treasury um, results are in. So this is for the month of April because the Treasury reports are a few months behind. And you can see that the Treasury has gone, around February 2026. You can see that China has reduced their Treasury holdings from 693 to 651 in April. My guess is it's probably gone down a lot more since April because the last couple of months, that's when you had the Strait of Hormuz closing. And you can see the treasury market yield is going through the roof. The 20, 30-year bonds have gone over 5% yields. So my guess is China has sold a lot more. So we have to wait for May and June ones to come out. So another thing you can see is that Japan has slightly increased it compared to from March to April. Japan has slightly increased it. And their treasury holdings has not changed that much, to be honest. If you go all the way back to last year, Japan has increased its treasury holdings. And also, guys, you can see Great Britain. I shouldn't say Great Britain anymore. I should say United Kingdom. Apologies for that, guys. So United Kingdom increased its treasury holdings to 937 compared to 807 this time last year and 926 on the month of March. So UK has been increasing its treasury holdings, so has Japan a little bit on and off. And the other country that's been increasing is the Cayman Islands. So China's been reducing, and China is the only country in the top five that has been significantly reducing its holdings. The Cayman Islands, you can see the Cayman Islands has been gradually increasing. So the Cayman Islands, you can see it's gone up to 471.6. And last year it was around 446.5. So the Cayman Islands, you can see, is slightly increased compared to, month of March, 459, and now it's 471. So people are probably asking, what the hell is Cayman Islands doing in the top four treasuries? And Cayman Islands doesn't even have a GDP of 71 billion dollars. It doesn't even have that much GDP. It doesn't even make that much money, guys. If you Google GDP of Cayman Islands, let's have a Google of it now. Let's see. So you see, guys, Cayman Islands GDP is only 7.24 billion. 7.24 billion. Not even the smallest Chinese city is low as that. This is, so where does Cayman Island get all of that money from? End of the day, you just got to follow the money because this is all basically, you know, tax dodging and all these billionaires hiding their cash, hiding their money, hiding their wealth. This is what they do. They put their money in Cayman Islands and they buy bonds, government bonds, because this, supposed to be safe. That's what they do, guys. So they use Cayman Islands to do it. All this money laundering, and that's how they skip paying taxes, and they don't pay any taxes. These billionaires. So so it's really funny to see the Cayman Islands there, the top four. Unbelievable. But yeah, the rest of the countries are pretty much, up and down. There's not been any significant changes apart from Canada has sold around 50 billion, which was quite a big number, and Saudi Arabia sold around, I think, around 10 billion. Um, yeah, around 10 billion or so. So, but that could be because of the war that was happening with Iran. It's not just Saudi Arabia, but all the GCC countries were probably selling treasuries. And yeah, guys, so I just wanted to kind of talk to you about the treasuries here, and especially the Cayman Islands bit. It's just I really hope the treasury market gets destroyed. I really hope so. Because these billionaires who have put all of their money into Cayman Islands and, buying into government bonds, American bonds, I really hope that all of that crashes and burns. Seriously, guys. The countries who are most at risk is obviously Japan and United Kingdom. And I think having over $1 trillion worth of treasuries in America, you are putting yourself in a huge, huge risk. Huge risk. It's very, very difficult to sell bonds, to be honest, in the market, because to be able to sell bonds, you need to have a buyer, and this is why it's taking China so long to sell these bonds. And even the worst case scenario, if China loses, if suddenly America decides to kind of confiscate all of these treasuries that China has, it's not going to be a major deal because I believe that United States has got more than 1 trillion or even 2 trillion somewhere in China, and China can easily withhold that. So China and America are pretty much dependent on each other. They have both have investments in each other's countries. So if the United States tries anything funny, China's not going to be playing that game. They will hit back even harder. So I think China's treasury holdings has gone down. At one point, it was over 1 trillion. I think it was a couple of years ago or something. Back then, during Trump's first term, I think China had treasuries all the way double this number. over a trillion, I think 1.2, 1.3 trillion or something. If you also include Hong Kong and the island of Taiwan and stuff like that, could be even 2 trillion. But China's been reducing it ever since Trump started the trade war. And even during Biden's time, Biden even, carried on with the trade war. So China has been, selling these treasuries. And sometimes they don't have to sell, they just let it mature and they just cash out. And I think that's what China is doing. And I think a lot of these treasuries are due to be cashed out over the next year or two. So China might be just waiting for them just to expire or, mature, however you kind of look at it. Anyway, guys, let's move on to the next story. So President Trump has taken away Keir Starmer's thunder. So Keir Starmer was due to, announce his resignation on Monday, tomorrow. So obviously nobody's sure if this is going to happen or not. But Trump just confirmed that it will happen. So Trump's words were Keir Starmer will resign as Prime Minister of United Kingdom. So can you see his words? Will resign. So before any prime ministers resign from UK, they normally let their allies know. So they let America know, probably let Zelensky know, probably let Israel know. So they let all the allies know, right? And they obviously say it's a secret. Do not, release this to the press and stuff. So what does Trump do? He just releases it on Truth Social. It's so funny, guys. He just releases it on Truth Social, and he didn't even give a chance for Keir Starmer to give a goodbye speech. He just took his thunder. He just took the spotlight because obviously Trump wants to be the center of attention, and he gave a few digs at the prime minister. He said he failed. He's failed in immigration and energy. So he not only took his thunder, but he also gave him a few digs, gave him a few kicks on the floor, if you can say that. But yeah, I just thought it's absolutely hilarious how Trump has done that. But it's UK's fault as well. I mean, Keir Starmer has been an absolute puppet, and very weak. He's been very weak with President Trump. He allowed President Trump to basically walk all over him. I mean, I saw a press conference where, Keir Starmer basically he prepared a long speech to speak alongside Trump, and he was ready to speak. And President Trump just shooed him away. He's like, "Go away, go stand behind me." And I just thought it's just so funny, hilarious. And Trump has had no influence over Trump whatsoever. He's probably scared of him. Trump has been calling the shots, and uh, and he just walked all over Keir Starmer. I mean, in England, we need strong leaders, guys. We don't need people like Keir Starmer who are weak, who, you know, Trump is literally walking all over them. And the trade war was a complete disaster, complete disaster. Britain was the only one that capitulated. If they only held out for a little while longer, they might have had a really good deal. But instead, what does Keir Starmer do? He completely surrenders to Trump's demands, gives America everything that they want. Absolute weakness, guys. Absolute weakness. So I think Keir Starmer leaving is good. However, he's done his job. I think his job was to, block, uh, under 16s from using the internet, social media, and things like that because you need ID now. And he started a ball rolling where it's probably going to be rolled out to everyone else in the UK. So if you want to use social media, you have to like post your ID. So do you know why they want to do that? Because if you post anything they don't like, they will come and arrest you because they have your ID, they have your address, and they will come and arrest you. And it's easy job for the police guys, very easy job. You know, if you it's easier to arrest someone on social media posts than to arrest someone doing murder. Because if you go and investigate a murder scene, that takes real police work. You got to go to the crime scene. You got to, you know, take some DNA. You got to check all the CCTV cameras. You got to find the weapon. You got to find the motive. It's a lot of work, guys, to find a murderer. But with social media posts, you post something they don't like, it's easy. That's it. That's it. They don't need to do any investigation. They can just contact Twitter, get that screenshot of what you sent, start charging you. When he goes to court, that's all they have to do. Just show the judge what you said. Whether if it's something against the J's or the Z's, they can blame you on anti-Semitic. They can put you on terrorism charges. Who knows? It's easy. That's why they focus on, social media crimes in UK because it's easy work for them. They don't want to do real hard work that the police normally have to do. They don't want to do it. They just want to do the easy work. And the convictions of these social media crimes are very high because you cannot deny it. You cannot. It's not one word against another. You cannot say no, it wasn't me. Prove it was me because they have all the proof. They have all your ID. They have the fact that it came from your account. Sometimes they seize your phones and your laptop, and they can prove it that way as well. So it's easy work for them, guys. It's a tick on the box. Anyway, let's move on. So the Israelis have been sending out messages in Hebrew, and people have been translating these Hebrew words. And one particular guy has said maybe USA needs another Pearl Harbor or 9/11 to remember who the enemy is or who is the friend. And it's, you know, it's messages like this which tells you, are they really America's, best ally or are they America's worst enemy? Because what kind of friend sends messages like that to their best allies? Can you tell me, guys? I mean, these people, these so-called chosen people, they have been involved in every single war throughout history. Definitely in my lifetime, but probably even before my lifetime. I think every single war in the Middle East was because of them. You can name every single country and every single reason they went to war in the Middle East. It's all because of them to benefit them. They went to war in the Middle East with Iraq. They blamed weapons of mass destruction. Went in, got rid of Saddam. Why did they get rid of Saddam? Because Saddam was, he was opposed to them, to Israel, and he was a friend to the Palestinians. Then they got rid of Gaddafi. Again, Gaddafi was against them, and they got rid of him. Then they got, rid of Assad from Syria. Assad was against them, so they got rid of him. And now they're going after Iran. Rest of the countries are pretty much bought and paid for. They've done their color revolutions and they bought out the governments, puppets and stuff like that. And yeah, they've been taking out these Middle Eastern countries one by one, all to protect Israel. And they've done it throughout the history, guys. They've done it throughout the history. For example, obviously the First World War, Second World War was down to them. But you can even trace it back to the Vietnam War. You can even trace it back to every single major war. They had something to do with it. And why you would say, hang on a second, Vietnam War had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with them, guys. Everything to do with them. Because during the Vietnam War, while America was busy during the Vietnam War, guess who started a war in the Middle East? I think it was a 6-day war or 7-day war. Israel attacked its neighbors during the middle of the Vietnam War, and you're welcome to check the dates. And the Americans couldn't do anything. They couldn't stop Israel because they were too busy in Vietnam. So Israel had a blank check to do whatever the hell they want in the Middle East. And also, the Soviets were busy in Vietnam because they were fighting the Americans in Vietnam. They were providing weapons, intelligence, and and they were heavily involved in Vietnam as well. So the Soviets couldn't even help the Middle Eastern countries because the Soviets at the time were helping the Middle East, giving them weapons, intelligence, and stuff. But the Soviets were busy in Middle East. I mean, in Vietnam. Americans were busy in Vietnam, and Israel took full advantage. They attacked their neighbors. They took huge amounts of land. They took huge amounts of land from Egypt and from Syria, and the Middle Eastern countries they had to give up because they couldn't cope with Israel's firepower because they had all the best weapons from America at the time. So you see, every single war, guys, every single war they had something to do with it. If you look at every single war throughout our recent history, you can you can you can pin the blame on Israel in one way or another. Anyway, I better move on before I get noticed. So we're reaching the end of the video today, guys. Make sure you check out my new channel. We discuss kind of some high IQ stuff. Today's subject, we're basically talking about, are we at the end stages of capitalism? What's actually going on? And I saw this post on X, and I wanted to kind of just requote it for you guys. It says, capitalism began in England around the 16th century. They immediately went to colonize half the planet in search of new markets, committed multiple genocides, traded slaves, and engaged in constant war. That's capitalism for you. But then I can also add, all these rich billionaires are turning into trillionaires like Elon Musk. Obviously, not actual money, but paper money. But it doesn't matter anyway. These billionaires, what's a few billion here and there? These billionaires are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is going down. People are working paycheck to paycheck, while these rich billionaires and trillionaires are making all the money. And so, yeah, I just wanted to talk about whether we're reaching the end of capitalism. We talk about AI, the fact that AI is taking over all the jobs. So, you know, if AI takes over all the jobs and companies don't need to hire humans anymore, so where will that leave us? They can literally they can literally, they won't need humans anymore. If this AI keeps carrying on the way it is, they can have robots and AI doing all the work, all the labor, all the hard jobs, all the IT jobs. So what are humans going to do? So humans might be surplus, and they might try and extinct all of us. Who knows? But when they take away all the jobs away from us, what are humans going to do? Are they going to just go on government handouts for the rest of their lives? What are humans gonna do if robots do all the work? So yeah, I'm kind of talking about that, but also capitalism as a system as well, but also communism. People love to, people love to hate on communism. I was brought up in England, and all the books I used to read and all the brainwashing that I used to have, they literally brainwash kids to hate communism. They make us read, books like Animal Farm. They make us watch Animal Farm cartoon. They try and basically brainwash us from a young age to hate communism. And even now today, people are hating communism when they don't know why. While their own lives are suffering, they complain about the cost of living. If you go on their Twitter page, they're complaining about the cost of living, how they can't afford food anymore, and yet they complain about communism. Why? Why can't you guys have an open mind and see, there's other systems out there different from capitalism, which benefit the people more. For example, guys, commu- communism was never given a chance. Throughout history, it was never given a chance. They love to say communism fails or communism doesn't work. You hear that all over the media. You hear that about China. They said, oh, communism failed there. Millions died because of famine, because of communism. They love to blame communism for these things. But they don't tell you the truth. They don't tell you the truth that back then, when China had those famines, they had sanctions in place. They couldn't buy any food. They couldn't buy, fertilizer for growing food. They couldn't buy farming equipment to farm. They couldn't buy, seeds to grow, wheat and all of that stuff. All of these sanctions were placed on China at the time, and obviously because of these sanctions, famines happened. So they don't talk about that. They love to blame China. They love to blame Chairman Mao. And also, guys, if you allow, has any country been allowed to flourish on communism by its own? Look throughout history. Every country that tried communism was either attacked, they had a war with, the West had a war with them, or they've placed heavy sanctions on them, or, they've had cold wars with them, or they've been attacking them in other ways, which I'll probably explain. But communism was never ever given a chance. Never. Look throughout history. No country with communism was given a chance because they don't want a system where people have control, where the capitalist, oligarchs have little control because they want to make all the money and they want the little people to have no money. This is why they hate, communism. And this is coming from somebody who's lived in the West, who loves capitalism. I love capitalism, guys. But I know there's limits in capitalism. I know I am not, end of the day, I know that I am at a disadvantage. The only winners in capitalism are the ones at the top. You are on a losing battle when it comes to capitalism. But yeah, I've grown up in capitalism. I've made, a lot of money using capitalism. But then you also walk out the streets of London. You see so many poor people everywhere, homeless people. You see, people under heavy drugs and stuff like that. And these people are not being helped. It seems like certain people are making all the money and others are just, left to die. So yeah, I think, if you look throughout history, the Soviets, obviously, there was a Cold War against them. The Yugoslavians were communists and they got blown to bits by NATO and balkanized into separate countries. You had Vietnam, and obviously they had the war in Vietnam and all the surrounding countries. And before they left Vietnam, the Americans dropped Agent Orange all over Vietnam, so they never developed. So they dropped Agent Orange throughout Vietnam and all the surrounding countries like Laos and Cambodia and other places as well. So so the people are born with defects and stuff like that, and so these countries remain poor. It's only now Vietnam is starting to shine, and all these other surrounding countries are starting to shine. You see Laos starting to shine now. Cambodia is starting to shine. Yeah, I haven't even mentioned China, by the way. But China, they've been attacking China since the 1950s. They've had all these sanctions, they had all these embargoes, they had failed color revolutions like what happened in Tiananmen Square. And they've been attacking China forever, guys. They've been blocking China from the International Space Station. They've been obviously making up lies about China throughout. They've been provoking China with the island of Taiwan. They've been threatening wars with China for a long time. China's not had it easy. So yeah, countries that now look at Cuba as well. Cuba's not been allowed to thrive under communism. They blockaded Cuba. If there was a country that's communism and it's allowed to thrive, allowed to develop its own system, I'm pretty sure that system would have done well. So why are they attacking all the communist countries? Because they're scared of these communist countries. They don't want these countries to succeed. Because these countries are all about people first. So I wanted to talk about China last. So a lot of people might say, hang on a second, China is not really a communist system, it's more capitalist system. Well, no one know, guys. You obviously don't know China that well. China, yeah, for sure, it has capitalist elements to it. It has communist elements to it. But China has what he's done is got the best of both worlds. It's incorporated both systems and incorporated its own systems as well. It's called Chinese characteristics. And this is what happens when you let a country develop its own system. They've obviously started with, full communism. And over the years, they've seen what works, what doesn't work, and they've learned. The things that didn't work, they kind of, stopped using it. But things that did work, they carried on using it. Now you have a Chinese system which is near perfect. It's a mix of capitalism and communism. But in the day, the base principles are still the same. It's all about helping the people. And China has, raised over 800 million people out of extreme poverty. They are putting all their money into infrastructure, and while America puts all its money into wars, all the public services in China are free or very cheap. These are completely different systems. And there's capitalist controls in China. No company is allowed to become too big, like Alibaba or Jack Ma. Jack Ma has no power in China. And these, massive companies, they're not allowed to grow too big, too fast. Otherwise, you're going to have what you have in America. You have BlackRock and Vanguard running the show. They have their pies in every single American company. And they are pretty much pushing their own agenda on these companies, like wokeism, for example. So yeah, it's not good to allow a company to have too much power, too much control, and this is what China has capitalist controls. So yeah, so let's discuss it, guys. This is on part 2 on my new channel. The link is on my description. Let me know what you guys think, and yeah, have an open mind, guys. Have an open mind. Just look around you. Maybe there is, if you've been growing up in a capitalist system all your life, just keep an open mind. Just see how other countries are doing, like China. Compare it to yours, and just think whether maybe there is a better system out there. You just look at how you've been treated by your own government, and just look around you and see if it's a fair system. Anyway, food for thought, guys. Food for thought. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. And check out my videos on part 2 as well. Thanks. See ya. Bye.